All right, people. How is it going? How's it going? Sorry. Welcome to another just kind of wrap up podcast where I just kind of yap a little bit and talk about sports. We didn't do one for the end of end of last night's week 5 for college football, and so I knew that I had to get on it as soon as possible. So in this little video, I'm going to try to make it quick. It's just going to be a recap, whether it takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes. In this little episode, we're going to talk about, all things from the Georgia versus Alabama game. We're going to talk about Miami's last-second win, Ole Miss losing, getting upset, Michigan surviving another game, and then the case to make a case for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman, because that's what's been on a lot of people's mind. Is a lot of people want to know, hey, why isn't Travis Hunter in case for the Heisman? Why isn't his name in that discussion? And so we're just going to talk about it, and we're just going to get into it. And we're going to just kind of go from top 20, the top 25, and we're just going to go down. I haven't reacted to the top 25 yet for ESPN's rankings. I know they released it yesterday, but I haven't looked at it. I haven't even worked on my own personally for my personal top 25, but I mean, we'll get there eventually. So Texas, they beat Mississippi State 35-13. A lot of people said that Manning didn't have the best game. He only had 2 touchdowns, which, I mean, they won, so that's all that they can ask for. I mean, last season, too, they were dealing with this struggle halfway through the season, too, when Ewers went down and Murphy had to come in, and I think Manning played a little bit last year. I don't remember, but they got Oklahoma coming up next, and so if if Quinn Ewers is ready to go, sub Arch, you know what I mean? Like, Manning's time will come, and I'm probably gonna say that a lot, but all right. So then next game, number 2 Georgia versus number 4 Alabama. I feel like an idiot for ending the stream the other night. This game was freaking fantastic. This was the best game of the 2024 season. There's no debate. The only game that I think potentially has the possibility of being better is whenever the SEC championship rolls around, when Texas plays Georgia at home, another Georgia road game, when it could be Kirby Smart's second loss of the season, which that'd be freaking wild. And then obviously playoff games like the national championship. So hopefully we have a good season. But man, that game, I mean, Milroe, dude. Milroe is a freaking dog. The way they just read up the score on Georgia was very wild there at the beginning, where it's like, oh, look at that. It's 30-7 at halftime. And I was shocked. I was amazed. I was like, oh my gosh. They're putting it on him. I did not expect that. I expected, I will admit, a low-scoring game, because usually these games are either tightly contested, close games, or it's a blowout. And so I was expecting a 21-17 kind of game where Carson Beck ended the game, drives his team down, touchdown for the win. Kind of like how it was in this instance. But no, like that was not what the case was on Saturday. Like, Georgia's offense looks absolutely abysmal. Georgia's defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Milroe was running all over him, whether it was through the air, on the ground. Like, Alabama was dominating. And then, I'm not going to lie, I fell asleep a little bit in the third quarter and wasn't paying attention. Like, I was watching, but it's like, So I started working on some of my, I do have my top 25 ready, I'm not going to lie, but I still have to edit it. Yeah, I'll say it right now. I don't care. I got number 1. So number 1 all the way to 25 here. Bama, Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, Georgia, Miami, Oregon, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Michigan, USC, LSU, Clemson, Iowa State, Oklahoma, K-State, BYU, Louisville, Utah, Texas A&M, Boise State, Kentucky, yes, Kentucky, a 2-loss team, and Illinois. Or I think Kentucky only has 1 loss. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I was working on that while the third quarter was rolling in, so it's like, whatever. But then I just got busy, and so I never got to finalize and edit the video because it takes about an hour to do, not lying, to edit all the photos together. And anyways, but yeah, Georgia versus Alabama, hell of a game, hell of a game. Kirby Smart, I think a glaring issue, because there's context to every single game that they play, but his record is now 1-6 against Alabama. 1-6. The only time he's beat them is in the national championship. Now, every single time that they have met, it's either been for an SEC title game or the national championship. There is that one, the game that I will ignore and throw in the back, and it won't matter because it's kind of been erased in time due to his back-to-back national championship games, is the 2021 when Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and all of them ran it up on Stetson Bennett because it was his, second or third start? This was the 2020 season, so it was just like, I don't know, that was a weird moment in history where it's like, oh my gosh, Georgia's playing Alabama, and it was either first weekend of October or last weekend of September, kind of like how this one was, where wasn't Georgia ranked like number 6 or 7? Maybe they weren't even top 10. I don't even remember, but yeah, like, Georgia hasn't been blown out this bad since Joe Burrow and LSU back in 2019. I didn't watch that game. I was in Washington. But to just see, like, it was so weird and it was so uncanny. But, like, the 2018 National Championship, the 2022 National Championship, 2023 SEC title game, the 2021 SEC title game. The 2021 SEC title game was a blowout. But, again, it was made clean slate after they won the national championship. But it's so funny to see that these coaches that we love, the Dabo Sweeneys of the world, the Kirby Smarts, the Nick Sabans, the, Kyle Whittinghams, these big coaches where it's like, oh, they can win the big game. It's funny to see them in these kind of games when it's like, no, they kind of have a glaring record, i.e. 1-6. Lincoln Riley was another coach that I was thinking of, where the coach that could get it done and did get it done was Nick Saban. And it will always be Nick Saban, which is actually freaking crazy. I made a meme about Kalen DeBoer, and I was like, you can kill the man, but not the idea. And it's, the side-by-side faces. But, yeah, I think the performance that Milroe put on, he's definitely in the driver's seat for the Heisman. And I might sound like a broken record as I'm switching back and forth. I'm not going to lie. I put Cam Ward after the first quarter of, hey, we've played 3 games. We're through the first quarter of the college football season. I said, give me the quarterback out of Miami. He's going to win the Heisman. But now after yesterday's close game against Virginia Tech and just how Milroe put Alabama on his back and they were blowing out Georgia, the defense bailed on him. Yes, the offense did slow down, but I'll get to it because there is the fourth quarter. Milroe, to me right now, is proving he's the best player in college football right now. Him, Ashton Jeanty, and Travis Hunter. But here's the thing. They're not going to give it to a Boise State running back. Jeanty had 4 touchdowns again the other day against Washington State. I'm here to tell you, New York does not care. He'll get the invite. He'll get in his plane. He'll fly down to New York. He'll be able to hang out with whoever's there when it's all said and done. Probably give me Ewers, I don't know about Jackson Dart anymore, even though he was my dark horse pick. But, Milroe, Ashton Jeanty, Quinn Ewers, and, Travis Hunter. He'll get to fly out to New York, but he's not winning it. He could have the most rushing yards. He could have the most touchdowns out of all of them. But they're not going to give it to him because he is a Mountain West player. How many guys have won the Heisman from the Mountain West? I know kind of how Heisman Trust voters think and stuff. I might sound crazy. Here I am sitting on my couch, oh, I can coach this team better, being a couch coach here, troll dweller. But big wins like Alabama's win against Georgia, that's going to favor a lot of things, and that's going to benefit Alabama greatly. If Alabama were to drop one against LSU, if Alabama were to drop one later in the year against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, even though I don't think they will because it's at Alabama, They don't have to go to Jordan-Hare. I just think, I mean, the committee would definitely favor, Heisman Trust voters would favor those kind of big SEC wins versus statistical blowouts where it's like your guy had 9 touchdowns today, your guy had 700 rushing yards. They don't care. They don't care. They look at it as like, oh, it's one game. Look who they played. They played San Jose State. Look who they played. They played Fresno State. Look who they played. They played, Idaho. They don't care. The one thing that they will kind of look at and go, okay, the Oregon game, even though it wasn't statistically his best game and he didn't have as many big plays that popped out, they will look at that and go, okay. Just it's show points, but it's also style of wins of who you're beating. All right, so that's enough of that rant. Sorry. Okay, let's continue. Let's move on. But yeah, Georgia and Alabama, definitely game of the year. I think Milrose in the front seat to win the Heisman. They're my number one team. I know that they jumped in the polls, but they're clearly by far the number one team. Williams, it was so impressive. Like his last second touchdown and stuff when he broke away, Alabama takes the lead again. It was an instant classic. It's an awesome game. So I'm gonna stop rambling about that. Ohio State, they beat MSU 38-7. It was close, but only after the first quarter. After the first quarter, it turned into a total blowout. Okay, Ole Miss 20-17. They lost on a last-second field goal. I do know that they lost to Kentucky, but I didn't know how and which way. Like later, it showed the replays of the missed field goal. I think this is a weird rant, and I might make a video on it. But this is why you schedule properly at the beginning of the season versus just doing freaking patty cake games. Because I said it, Ohio State or a little bit of Oregon and Ole Miss, they all had fluke schedules, out of conference schedules to start their 2024 campaign. Like look who Ohio State played. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. Look who Ole Miss played. Furman, Middle Tennessee, or UT Martin or something like that. And then here comes an SEC squad that just took Georgia to the brink at home in Lexington. They come into your place. You lose on a missed field goal. Your offense isn't doing too well. Your defense is fine. Like it was a low-scoring game. But like that, because they didn't not properly schedule something out, because you have to buy a team to go play them. Like Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers or something. I think Alabama paid them $1.4 million or something to pay. Like there's a number, there's a stat for it. But if you look at Ole Miss wasn't ready for this game because who they had played up to that point versus Kentucky, who had played Georgia, took them to, and Georgia's the number one team in the country. So it's like, it doesn't shock me and it doesn't surprise me knowing, okay, Ole Miss choked this, Lane Kiffin, he can't win the big game. Like, it doesn't shock me looking at it from that stereotype point of view. But this is also why you just don't mess around with non-conference games at the beginning of the season because it doesn't get your guys ready. And we clearly saw it today. And I think for Ohio State, when Ohio State has to play Iowa, or when Ohio State has to play Wisconsin, or Ohio State has to play Michigan, they'll play Michigan at the very, very end of the year. But like, there's a reason why Ohio State drops games in the middle of October, and they have in the past, is because their non-conference beginning of the season games are just absolute boring. Oh, look who we're playing, and it does not benefit them at all. And like, look at Alabama. They played it close against South Florida. South Florida's a decent program. South Florida's a hell of a lot better than Akron or Furman or Western Michigan. And then Alabama also played Wisconsin. Did they benefit from, starting quarterback Van Dyke tearing his ACL in like the second possession? Yeah, they benefited greatly from that. But look who Alabama played at the beginning of the season to get them ready for the Georgia game versus look who Ole Miss played to get them ready for Kentucky. That's all I'm saying. I think this is a video tangent for a whole random other time. But like, I think we've seen people scrap together last-second games back in the 2020 season, and we know about non-conference games and all that scheduling like years out in advance. Like the 2028 schedule, I think's out there a little bit. The 2027 is out there a little bit for home and home series, but we've seen teams be able to get games together last second. I think this whole Tennessee opening up against Ball State or Oregon opening up against Idaho, they got to get rid of it. Unless it's a rivalry game like Utah versus BYU or Utah versus Utah State, because they're not in the same conference anymore. Oregon State versus Oregon, Texas A&M versus Texas. I don't know why they got rid of that for all those years. But these inferior opponents, when you look at Alabama, of course Alabama's going to beat Western Kentucky. They will always beat them. Of course Alabama's going to beat Mercer. They always will. They got to get rid of this shit. And I think it'd be so awesome. Like, why was the Georgia Tech Florida State game so good? Because it was a great start to the season. Why was the LSU versus USC game so good? It's because it's two top of their division, top of their conference kind of teams facing at it right away. We don't have to see this boring, let's ease into the season kind of game. Like, if they just wipe it clean, have 8 or 9 conference games, 8 at least, and then the 3 non-conference, where it's like, okay, Michigan wants to put a bid in to go play Tennessee. Okay, great. You guys are going to play in 2025. USC is going to be like, you know what? We want to play, what's an SEC team? Michigan wants to go play Auburn, or Clemson wants to play, who's a Big 12 team? Utah. Clemson wants to play Utah or stuff. It's like, great. Let's have those non-conference games right at the start of September. Get people going. Get people ready for the college football season instead of, well, here we have Ohio State versus Akron. Nobody wants to watch that shit. We know Ohio State's going to win. Save your money. Save your time. Put Ohio State remember back in 2017, a couple years ago, week 2, Oklahoma against Ohio State, one of the best games. What did Baker Mayfield do? Came into the shoe and won. Because it was a challenge Ohio State wasn't ready for. And I'm telling you, it was one of the best games of the season because 2 big schools going at it. We didn't know who the winner was before the game. Like, Sooner fans were like, okay, we got it. Buckeye fans were like, okay, we got it. But if you get rid of those boring non-conference games, I think college football spikes tremendously. But that's another video for another topic. I know I gave my whole thoughts and opinions on that, but I've had that one for freaking ever. That one's been sitting in the back of my mind since I think 2021. But I'll do a huge expanded video on that for another time. Look at the stats of hey, look how many times they want Appalachian State versus Michigan to happen. They want a blocked field goal. They want an upset, but the truth is it's not going to happen with how well these colleges are recruiting guys out of high school, spring ball, with just how ready some of these teams are to go at the beginning of the season. Like Georgia beating the shit out of Clemson. Like Tennessee beating the hell out of NC State. We're not going to get a game unless it's a prodigy like an Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence again, coming from a small school like San Diego State or UConn, or because didn't UConn play Alabama a couple years ago or something? But yeah, UConn's not going to beat Alabama in week 1 or week 2. Just saying, just freaking saying. So let's keep it moving. Sorry, that's a tangent for another time. So Ole Miss lost. I would drop them out of the top 10 because to this point yeah. All right, Miami, controversial ending. Virginia Tech played them close, dude. The Hokies were giving it all they got. Sadly, they lost, unfortunately. There was a controversial ending where, was it a touchdown, was it not? Still, I mean, if they called it, I look at it this way now, if they called it a touchdown on the field, why did they overturn it? Anyways, I think it doesn't matter. I don't think it has any playoff implications. I don't think it has any ACC implications because Florida State's already planted their flag for being a team that doesn't contend, even though they were heavy favorites coming in. It's between Miami and Clemson now. Louisville's not going to come out of nowhere and win it. This isn't like 2020 where Notre Dame's in the ACC. Georgia Tech's already lost too much. Syracuse is still on the brink where they can be a dark horse team, but it's either Clemson or Miami. Yeah. All right, so then moving on. Oregon took care of business against UCLA, 34-13. That's going to be their first Big Ten win of the season. Penn State versus Illinois was a boring 21-7 game, typical Big Ten. Utah, 23-10. They lost to Arizona. They need Cam Rising. I don't know what the hell the university's hiding. I don't know why he's playing, but look at, they almost lost to Oklahoma State in the fourth quarter, and they just lost to Arizona. This team very well could have 2 losses. I don't know. Utah's kind of struggling lately. Okay, then Michigan, they were blowing out the Gophers. Not going to lie, Michigan's offense was doing really well with Orji. And then here comes Minnesota, fourth quarter surge. That onside kick, I really think ref ball played a little bit of a part in that. I definitely would have given it to Michigan and just, hey, whatever happens, happens. Because to this point, Michigan's probably been one of the most fraudulent top 25 teams because how they barely beat Minnesota, how they barely beat USC. You know, they got blown out by a real competitor in Texas. Shit, we haven't seen. At least I haven't seen because I didn't watch. Who did Texas play the week after Michigan when Ewers did get injured? I didn't watch that game because I was watching the other game that was live at the time because that was like a SEC exclusive kind of. Shit, I don't even remember, but yeah, we've seen what happens when they actually have to play a real freaking team to get their asses handed to them. So, yeah. All right, USC 38-21 playing Wisconsin. Again, Wisconsin was dealing with missing their star quarterback. They did get up on the Trojans, but Trojans scored how many unanswered points? Well, they were down 21-10 at halftime, and they made it 38. So yeah. 28 unanswered points in the second half. And, keeping Wisconsin to 0 points, you're going to win the ball game. So I think USC, I haven't looked at all the stats yet because it's been a while, not since the quarter awards, but to me, Miller Moss had another 3-touchdown performance. I'd say right now he's kind of in that little, hey, mess around and find out situation where he's up there in Heisman talks. Not as much as how people are yelling for Travis Hunter to be in the Heisman or, Jalen Milroe or Cam Ward. But if he keeps at the consistency that he's at, he's going to go to New York. All right, LSU won 42-10. Louisville and Notre Dame. Notre Dame holds off. Louisville's late fourth quarter surge. I got to rewatch that game. I don't remember how it ended. I don't remember how it went. I was kind of watching it, but doing other stuff, just kind of half paying attention. All right, Clemson and Iowa State both got a win. K-State rolls the Cowboys. Yeah, that's why I have Oklahoma State out of the top 25 because how we've seen from Utah game and how we saw it in the Kansas State game, something's wrong with Oklahoma State. But yeah, Bowman, Gordon, Presley, who else on that offense? They're just struggling. I don't know what more to say other than that they're struggling. And I think the BYU game with Avery Johnson, Edwards, it was a fluke. It was a fluke in Provo. So I think K-State's, I'm going to still keep them around that 20 spot because there's a lot of teams that I think are better than them right now, but they're still a top 25 team. Because, they beat up on Oklahoma State. Like I was saying it after the Utah game, is Utah's defense really good, or do the Cowboys just suck? Anyways, okay, then Oklahoma, they got their fourth quarter comeback against Auburn and Jordan-Hare. They won 27, what was the score? Oh, yeah, 27-21. Dude, Hawkins, that freshman, man, that first play straight from the jump, kind of like Derrick Henry last night in the Sunday Night Football game. Broke it off for a big run, touchdown. I was flipping more between the oh shit! It was yesterday. Why the hell don't I remember? was watching the Michigan Minnesota. I wasn't watching the Oklahoma game alone, if that makes sense. Like I was flipping between the USC game more and the Louisville Notre Dame game, and so I didn't see how they had a comeback, but I know it was just a big comeback because they were down in the fourth quarter by I think 2 scores. Right now, if I was Venables, Hawkins is the dude moving forward. I think I'm not saying Arnold can't ball, but like his turnover margin in the Tennessee game and kind of how Hawkins has just brought a new life into this team. You got to play the hot hand, and this is kind of how it was with Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels, where keep him in there. Have him get the start. Shit, not only did this happen with JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett, this happened for the Sooners literally 3 years ago with Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler. Rattler was stinking up the joint. Lincoln Riley's like, okay, get the fuck out of here. And comes Caleb Williams. What game was it? The Red River Rivalry. Say that 5 times fast against Texas. And the star Caleb Williams was born. Holy shit, how can I forget? We're having the same damn situation in Oklahoma again. Anyways, I'd put the freshman in. I'd start the freshman right now. But yeah. Okay, and then the last thing is let's talk about Travis Hunter right now. When they're up, they're up. When they're down, they're major down. There will be trolls in the comments section. There will be haters, of course, because it's Colorado, and ESPN will cover them like moss on a Mississippi tree stump. To quote, shit, what's her name from The Office? She's from corporate. She has the 2 big dogs. Kathy Bates. Shit! Can't even... It doesn't matter. Anyways, ESPN's going to milk that tea for it. And I wanted to look at what would it take for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman. I think there's more than just, hey, he's a dynamic 2-way player. Like, it's more to it. I think you have to combine a little bit of, let's look at the history and let's look at the reality of who Heisman winners are. It's quarterbacks, and then there was Mark Ingram that 1 year for the running back, Derrick Henry that 1 year for running back. These are both from Alabama, so maybe there's a little bit of SEC bias. And then there was Devontae Smith, also from Alabama. So if you're a skill player at Alabama, odds are, I mean, look at young Williams, prodigy. Just saying. Would he win the Heisman? Probably not. But what I'm trying to say is the last defensive player that was in New York, if I'm not mistaken, was Manti Te'o a few years ago. The only defensive player that has actually won it is Charles Woodson. But yeah, for skill players, we haven't had anything other than a quarterback since Devontae Smith. And then for defense, yeah, it hasn't been since Woodson. Other than that, it's quarterback, sprinkled in with Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram, who are just anomalies of themselves. They are that weird Ashton Jeanty outlier where, okay. But again, I said it a couple minutes ago, I don't think Boise State is a big enough school to have a Heisman winner. But we're talking about making a case for Travis Hunter winning the Heisman. Let's break it down. I'm going to pull up some stats here. So back in 2020, when Devontae Smith was a senior, I think there was a couple things building towards it too. I mean, he was an not all pro, what's the word I'm looking for? True freshman. He was a true freshman in the national championship when he caught the game-winning touchdown pass from Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not saying that affected his Heisman campaign 3-4 years later, but dude was pretty good at Alabama. And that shit, Waddle, Ruggs, we've seen the memes, we've seen the photos of how stacked Alabama has been. But in 2020, he had, in 13 games, 117 receptions, 1,856 yards. I have the stats pulled up. I don't know this straight off the top of my head. And he had 23 touchdowns. On off the top of my head, I can't remember his big game. Was it his LSU game? It was either the LSU. There was, and I think he did pretty good in the SEC championship. Oh no, it was Mechie and Williams who had a big game in the SEC championship game. But there was one game where Smith just blew everybody out of the water. Plus, the Ohio State national championship game, it didn't matter. It was already, he had already won the Heisman up until that point. But, so, let's look at just kind of yards, 1,800, touchdowns, 23. Okay. He never got handoff or rushing. Oh, he only got 4. He only got 4 handoffs, 6 yards total, and 1 touchdown. Okay, so he had 24 total touchdowns. Okay. Let's look at, so that's offensively. So if Travis Hunter wants to be in that category of winning it as an offensive receiver, he's got to be around maybe 1,600 receiving yards, maybe 20 touchdowns, 21 touchdowns. Because to match it stat for stat or have more, I don't know. Like he's got to play like a Heisman player here. Okay, now let's go over to Charles Woodson. Woodson had 21 rushing yards, 238 receiving yards, and scored 3 offensive touchdowns. Well, Hunter already has over that. He's been doing pretty well on the offensive side of the ball. On special teams, he racked up 301 punt return yards and a touchdown. So I would say, if I were to whisper into Coach Prime's ear and say, hey, you want him to win the Heisman, do this too. Have him return punts for probably the bigger games in the Big 12, the Utah game, the Arizona game. Have a little bit of stats in that category where it's like, look at what he's done on special teams, whether it's kick return or punt return. Have some of that. And then defensively, he recorded 47 tackles, 1 sack, and 8 interceptions. So we're looking at, let me write this down. So 8 INTs, and then Devontae Smith had 23 touchdowns, 24 touchdowns total. How many sacks? Only 1 sack, and that doesn't matter. And then he had a punt return touchdown. Okay. So if Travis Hunter wants to win the Heisman, I would think that it'd be in his best interest to have 20-ish touchdowns, around 20. I'm not talking 19. I'm talking 20 going in, and over 6 interceptions. So let's look at, let's look at his stats right now. Look at me, so unprepared. How we go team. Colorado Buffs. Way to Buffs. Okay, so far he leads the team in 561 receiving yards, so that's pretty good. Put about 1,000 more on that. Okay. Does he lead the team? He does lead the team in receiving touchdowns, 6. I did not know that. Tackles, he does not lead the team in tackles. Simon Craig does with 35. But so if we look here, he's 6th, though. He does have 16 tackles, 0 sacks, 2 interceptions. So he needs to make the case for him to go to New York. I think just out of popularity, he's probably going to go to New York. But for him to actually have that case of, hey, I'm coming home with something, he needs probably 5 more interceptions, 5 or 6 more interceptions, because that's how many Woodson had. And then for touchdowns, because he has 6 right now, he only needs about 14 more touchdowns. Yards are an empty stat. Like, what matters is touchdowns. So yeah, give him about 14 to 16 more touchdowns and about 7 more interceptions, and you have all the evidence in case you need to win a Heisman. Because with those stats, I'm telling you, Colorado is going to have a record over 500. He doesn't have those kind of stats, and they have a season like they did last year. But that'd be the final outlier too. If Travis Hunter is to win the Heisman is Colorado needs to win games. Last year, they can't have a season. He can't have this impressive list of all these accolades and stats if their team's not winning, because it's also a team award too. Jane Daniels, he won it last year. Robert Griffin won it a few years back. Baylor didn't have the most shocking record, but all the other Heisman winners that we've seen in previous years, look at how far they went. Bryce Young, they went to the national championship. Caleb Williams in USC, they lost in the Pac-12 championship, but they went to a bowl game. Can't say about Jane Daniels because he sat out his bowl game, and they didn't. Yeah. What am I thinking of now? And they didn't go to the SEC championship either. So that kind of like deflects the argument that I'm trying to make, but they got to win more than 4 games. They got to win more than 5 games. They have to win at least, 7 games, 8 games, and have those kind of stats for him. So knock on wood, he doesn't get injured, but Colorado would have to be within striking distance to probably get to a Big 12 championship game, win that, and then if they can get to the Big 12 championship game, win it, get into the college football playoff. He has an impressive stat sheet, like kind of matching, Devontae Smith's from Alabama, and then Charles Woodson, defensive side, back when he played for Michigan. If he can kind of like morph those stat lines together, have a healthy season, there is no reason why he's not walking away with the Heisman. Just saying. The only players that I would say are standing in his way is if Milroe statistically pops out at everybody, he wins the SEC championship game and goes on a deep run in the college playoffs. Cam Ward right now, who a lot of people, he's the media darling, if he wins the ACC. So there's a couple people who are in the way. And they'll favor a quarterback, so we'll just see. But, if he did have those kind of stats, yeah, I'd give him the Heisman, but we'll just have to see, dude. We've played 5 weeks. Yeah, 5 weeks. Still got until week we still got a couple months. The football season's still very young, but yeah. All right, so that's my thoughts on that, and trying to make a case for Travis Hunter. Do I have anything else? I don't think I do. We'll do. Oh, should I do? Hold on, let me think here. I gotta leave in a couple minutes anyway. I gotta go run and do some errands. Boy, what the hell, boy? I gotta leave in. Oh shit! I gotta leave in 15 minutes. I want to know. Should I do an NFL? No, not an NFL. NHL roster preview. Can I be fast enough? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I don't got time. I gotta be somewhere by 3. So plus I gotta go. Yeah. That doesn't matter. We'll come back. We'll do that later. But let's just look preview this week. Upcoming, we got Michigan State, Oregon, UCLA, Penn State, Mizzou, Texas A&M, Iowa, OSU, Auburn, Georgia. We got a few good games coming up. But yeah, so that's gonna be it, guys. I thank you for watching and listening to me ramble this long. We are going to do, what are we going to do a little bit later? We might do what's the word I'm thinking of? We might do a nightcap after, Monday Night Football reaction after the games tonight, and we might do a gaming stream a little bit later. So stay tuned for that. What else we got coming up on the docket? Just reviews and stuff. I still got to post my reaction to this past week, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, nothing much left, guys. So yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. I'll tune back. Thank you so much for tuning into the video and watching. You guys are awesome. I'll try to catch you guys in another one. Peace.